The first show I ever saw as a kid was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And in fact, when I was in 8th grade at Milken, I played one of Joseph's brothers in Joseph. And the last professional theater job I had was a concert version of Joseph where I played Jacob and also Pharaoh. You know, if you haven't seen the show, it's an Elvis impersonation of Pharaoh. So lots of fun with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. But I got to thinking about this week's Parsha Vayeishev and the story of Joseph, both from the Torah and from the mind of Andrew Lloyd Webber, who wrote the musical. And the theme of dreams is a huge theme of the story of Joseph. And in fact, the musical begins with the idea, in the story of Joseph, we're talking about literal dreams, the dreams you have when you go to sleep and what you see in the nighttime. But the musical, and I think also the Parsha, what it's telling us about in the Torah, is also about the kind of dreams that you dream for yourself, or for your family, or for your friends, or for your people. So the opening line of the musical is, some folks dream of the wonders they'll do before their time on this planet is through. So that kind of dreaming. The Hebrew word for dream, chalom, is found many times in this week's Parsha because the Torah reading begins with what we heard of Joseph sharing his dreams with his brothers. And these are the dreams that he has where he one day will in some way rule over them, where they'll be bowing down to him. Spoiler alert for the musical and for the Torah reading. Eventually, they do bow down to him when he is second hand to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the brothers come when there's famine back home, and they bow down to him to try and get food. Those dreams do become a reality in Joseph's life. And then we also see towards the end of this Parsha, and the maftir that I read, was how Joseph can interpret the dreams of others. He interprets the baker's dream, Pharaoh's baker, and Pharaoh's cupbearer's dream when he's in prison. And at the end, at the maftir, we see that those dreams that he interpreted is actually what came to fruition. So all of this, this dreaming, this interplay between dreams and reality, is really what the conference that I went to last week in Jerusalem was all about. So I went to the Rabbinical Assembly Convention. The Rabbinical Assembly is the organization for conservative and Masorti rabbis around the world. And we had a conference last week in Jerusalem. There were 245 conservative and Masorti rabbis from 11 countries around the world that met in Jerusalem last week. And the theme was actually bridging dreams and reality. So I think that of all the people in the Torah, Joseph is really the mascot of the person who bridges dreams and reality. And so I think this is the perfect parsha to be thinking about, or couple of parshas to be thinking about the link between dreams and realities and what we want to do to be our own bridge between our dreams and our reality. So I went to a session taught by the wonderful Reb Mimi Feigelson. She actually taught here, not this slichut, but last year's slichut, if you recall. And you might know her from her time here in Los Angeles. She taught at Ziegler for several years. But she's been back in Israel for a while now. She teaches at Schechter, which is the Conservative Masorti Graduate School in Jerusalem, and it also has the Conservative Masorti Israeli Rabbinical School. She is the spiritual guide there, and she teaches Talmud and Hasidic thought and prayer. And my year in Israel, I actually studied with her philosophy of prayer class at Schechter. And I studied there with her in Hebrew. And the session she taught in Jerusalem about bridging dreams and reality, she taught it in Hebrew, and she said to us, it's a benefit that she can teach this in Hebrew, because the word for dream in Hebrew, chalom, we can play around with it and get all these connotations and ideas of how we can bridge dreams to reality just by playing around with the root letters of the word for dream in Hebrew. Every Hebrew word has a root of usually 3 letters. So the 3 letters that make up the root for chalom, for dream, are chet, lamed, and mem. So we played a little linguistic game, mixing up the letters and forming different Hebrew words, and that sort of informed our conversation that we then looked at some text about making dreams a reality. And I want to share some of these words with you. If you're familiar with Hebrew, you might think of even more words, but I just have a handful of words like this that we can play around with. So the first word that uses chet, lamed, and mem, just like chalom, is halchama, which means welding. So that made us think about the process of welding when you put two materials together and you have to put them at a really high temperature. It's this active thing you have to do in order to make something that you're imagining into a reality. So what's the action, the very physical action that we have to take to make our dreams into a reality is this association between chalom and halchama that we could think of. Unfortunately, another word that came to the top of all of our minds was milchama, which also has chet, lamed, and mem. Milchama is the word for war. And so being in Israel and having this conversation, we acknowledged that being in Israel, talking about the theme of bridging dreams and reality, Israel is a dream made into a reality. It's what our ancestors dreamed for thousands of years, and we're privileged and lucky enough that we live in a time when it is a reality. But sadly, for the last 14 months, our people have had to fight this milchama, this war, to preserve this dream that has been made into a reality. And it's heartbreaking and it's exhausting. Oh my goodness, are people exhausted in Israel from these last 14, 15 months? But it's the thing that we have to do to preserve our dream that has become a reality. So that's milchama. Another word that shares these letters is lechem, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, bread. So bread, lechem, is sustenance. And similar to welding, you have to take natural material from the ground and do this process of baking it into making it bread, making it lechem. So it's a similar idea of how do we take the resources that we've been given and create it into something that can sustain us, making that dream into a reality. Another word that shares the chet, lamed, mem, is mechila, which is one of the words for forgiveness. So who do we have to forgive in order to make our dreams a reality? Do we have to forgive ourselves? Do we have to forgive others? And a question that I've heard both in Israel and here, in a session here I heard it being asked, since October 7th is the question of, do we even have to think about forgiveness for God? Which is a big theological question. So forgiveness, what kind of forgiveness do we have to engage in order to make our dreams a reality? And the last word I want to share that shares these letters is machol, which is one of the words for dance. So what kind of dance do we have to do to make our dreams a reality? And on the theme of machol and chalom, dancing and dreaming and making our dreams a reality, I want to share about two things that happened here yesterday. I heard that Rabbi Leibovitz was sharing about at least one of them. I was in the Shabbat B'Yachad junior congregation service, so I'm not sure if the other one came up in services yet, but I think these two things that happened here at VBS yesterday are really good examples of the bridge between machol, dance, and chalom, dream, and making our dreams a reality. So one of the things that happened here yesterday morning that also happened Wednesday night was Generations Day. And we watched as the kindergarten through 6th grade of the Valley Beth Shalom Day School danced and sang their way around the theme of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of Gold. And for me, what I really saw was another way, honestly, through dance and through song, through machol and shirah, of preserving a dream that has become a reality for the next generation of Jews. And we're not even in Israel, we're in the diaspora, but this strong connection to Jerusalem and to Israel that just reverberated right next door, right behind us, for those students really made me feel like what we're doing here at VBS is really also part of preserving a dream that's become a reality for the next generation. And then, thinking about the generation that came before us, last night we had this beautiful concert in honor of Rabbi Shulweiss and Ami Aloni, and the beautiful music of Ami Aloni that filled also the room behind us last night. While it wasn't the dancing that we saw in the morning, the dance, the machol of the music that played throughout the room really, to me, was watching us preserve the dreams that Rabbi Schulweis and Ami Aloni made for this place that we continue in our time here at VBS to preserve and to continue on with those dreams that they've had for what Judaism can look like here in Encino. So with all of these ideas of halchama, welding, and milchama, war, and lechem, bread, and mechila, forgiveness, and machol, dance, all of these kinds of ideas helping us with the word chalom, of making our dreams a reality, I want to share something that Joseph's brothers call Joseph. I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, so I want to share this. They called him Baal HaChalomot. When they called him that, it was an insult. It means... they say, Hine Baal HaChalomot hala zeba. Here comes that dreamer. Baal HaChalomot really means master of dreams. So to them it was an insult because they didn't like the dreams that he had. But he really was a master of dreams. Like I said, he was the mascot for us of making dreams into a reality. And so I want to take away the negative connotations that the brothers gave to Baal HaChalomot. And I want to hope for us that we, like Joseph, can actually turn this idea of Baal HaChalomot into a blessing, and we can all be Baalei HaChalomot, we can all be masters of our own dreams, and work together to either continue to make our own dreams a reality, and to continue to preserve the dreams that have been made reality from the generations before us, both in Israel and here at VBS. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.